Hi, I just want to start by saying that I'm really happy to be here and very, very grateful. I have two children and currently there's a whole community. I work at a school and there's a whole community of my co-teachers who's babysitting all the children. So it really a community, and I was looking at the MH360 degree poster which talks about celebrating diversity, empathy, collective well-being. And I was listening to some of the sessions and I was able to relate to a lot of some parts from different sessions. So I'll just start with some context to myself and why I'm here. So my journey with mental health and mental health diagnosis, so to say, started when I was say about 18, and I used to have breakdowns and this hyperventilating, panic attacks, or shut down, or lose my ability to talk for months. Like once I didn't talk for 2 months, and so I had lots of things, and I don't mind if I use a mix of sitting and standing. And I had a lot of diagnosis and a lot of struggle with the whole world of mental health, going to one therapist to another therapist, and finding a therapist is tougher than finding a date on Hinge. I mean, we need one unhinged app is what I've been telling people. But because you have to go, you have to really be able to find, and I'll tell you why it was a struggle for me is that I felt that through a lot of therapy and session, and I went to therapy, I went to psychiatry, I went through a whole lot of neurological testing, psychological testing, hypnosis and whatnot, and the whole thing was, at the end of it, I was a bunch of diagnoses. I didn't know who I was. I was anxious, I was depressed, I was schizophrenic, I was, what? I don't even remember. I was hysterical. I have a prescription that says hysteria, So I was just this bunch of diagnoses. And I did find a therapist eventually. His name is Dr. Sandeep Deshpande, with whom I feel like some progress happened. And before coming here, I was actually reflecting on my entire journey. And what hit me is that why it worked out with that therapist is that he saw me as human. And what happened to me through the whole process of so much of diagnosis is that I lost my agency. You know what is agency? Agency is that I am the agent of my life. I can make sense, I can do, I can think. But I had lost agency. But what happened with this therapist is that I found a sense of agency back. Just because I'm going through something didn't mean that what I'm saying or what I'm interpreting or what I'm questioning is now invalid. It's not like, oh, she's just crazy, so nahi hoga, she's just hallucinating. So that sense of agency. So I wanted to talk today about actually a couple of things that have really worked for me, which is why I was very excited to come here because of the very name that it's 360 degrees. And I want to talk about those things that have worked for me. One is frameworks, and the second is tools, and the third is community. And in terms of frameworks, what I realized is that what really helped me, by the way, today, if you met me and I didn't tell you all of this, none of you would guess any of this. Like, you wouldn't see me and say, oh, looks like you hallucinate. Looks like you were about to have a panic attack before you. No, you wouldn't say this. And, I'm a single mom. I work, and I'm not, I feel like I'll come to that, to a sense of survival versus thriving. But so agency, which is to say that I am the creator of my life. So there can be two ways that you think of your life. You can say that I am the created. Things happen to me. I think, doctor before was just saying that there are environmental factors and all of this happened to you. And then there's I'm a creator. I have an agency. I have a sense of making meaning. Okay, it's not to say that today I'm God, like I can create a tornado, not like that. But the meaning that I can ascribe to it is mine. And I feel like that as a framework is something that has really worked for me, because when I realized that I can live with sense of agency is when I started looking at a couple of other things. One is reading. I read a lot of books that helped me. I read The Human Zoo by Desmond Morris, which is beautiful, which says that, we are living in a human zoo. So the behavior that we are exhibiting is because we are in the zoo. We're not in our natural environment. So it's the zoo. It's the social angle. I read a lot of sociology. Some time back in the No Conditions Apply workshop, they were talking about conditioning and what society does and what society normalizes. So I read a lot about of that. I read Abnormal by Foucault. I read research. And this reading is an active reading. Like I was reading and questioning, and the therapist I was talking to you about was someone who would encourage it. I could go back and tell him that, you know what, I've read this, and this is what I believe based on this. What do you have to say? And it was an equal conversation between two human beings. So that is one thing as framework that has really helped me, is to have an agency, and therefore a sense of equality. And so this thing with agency started a while back for me, but it was still very in the intellectual. I used to feel dissonance that I have these ideas, but in action I'm doing something else, or in action I feel like I'm not really making a choice. Like I'm just, things are happening. I'm just suddenly becoming anxious, or I'm panicking, or I'm breaking down. And 3 years back, I joined this school where I currently work. It's in Bangalore. And there, the whole model of working, and so to say mental health, is a very community, is a collective well-being, because we as teachers, you can say facilitators, coaches, teachers, are working with children. And it's not only the knowledge that we're taking, but us, the way we are, the whole being is what it gets transferred. So our being is very important to the child's education. It's not like I'm just teaching English or teaching biology and taking only that. I'm taking something more fundamental. So the way to work around it is to work with everyone. And that is something that really moved me, because at the heart of it is that we are all human, and as human we are all equal, and as human we all have a sense of agency and a sense of worth, which is not dependent upon something. It's not dependent on how much I work, how much I earn, how many friends I have, anything. So there is that. So that is as framework, and that's when I came across this thing called empathy. And I didn't fully get it at first, but I get it now, and I think that what really changed something for me is to realize that at the heart of empathy is to see. It's to see. It's I see. So I see that I am shivering, and then I can assess what I'm feeling based on that, and what are the needs it is meeting for me. So I see, and from that see, that is acknowledgement. I acknowledge, and then I accept. And then there's this, so acceptance was very tricky for me, because I went through a large part of my life, I'm not very old, but large part of my life so far, seeking acceptance from others, Yeah, I'm an anxious person, so you must accept me like that. With my boyfriend, that, I'm a person like that. I just tend to vent things out. You just have to accept that. And I just went around, and I felt like I'm begging the world, see me, accept me, this is who I am. And I realized at some point that is so flawed, because then you are seeing yourself as a fixed person. This self that is there is so fixed, is so dynamic, and I don't call that acceptance now. That is like you're resigned. You've resigned to that. I am like that only. I am anxious only. Every time something happens, I react like that only, you know. So, but acceptance now, the way I see it is to see that yes, I did something, or I interpreted something, or I reacted in a certain way because I felt some things and it met some needs for me. And when I can see that, then what happened to me is that I immediately judged myself. I said, how could you be so weak? How could you be so, um, how could you be so stupid? You know, how? So, at the point of acceptance, what came next was forgiveness. And then I had to forgive, and forgive people, forgive myself, and accept that in my whole mental health journey, like I said, what is the part that I'm playing? What is the need that it's meeting for me? And then, if I'm the agent, if I have agency, if I can create my life in a dynamic way, then I can ask the question that is that a need for me now? Or is this pattern, or is this reaction, or is this behavior, or is this way of coping with something serving my need anymore? Also, are my needs shifting? Which is where I came across this idea of, survival, living for survival and living for thriving. So I did feel that if something is under threat, like what doctor was saying, if I'm sleeping and a lizard falls, I do get up. I do things. And then I constantly but need something from the external world to threaten me to live. And if there's no threat, then I can go back to a past pattern, Threat hai to I'll become active. Threat nahi hai to I'll become depressed or anxious again, and I felt like I'm living a lot in survival. So then to examine ki, when I was living in survival, what were my needs? Maybe my prime need was safety. Maybe my prime need was food, care, I don't know, whatever. But what are my needs now? Maybe my need now is creativity. Maybe today, like today when I'm coming to talk here, nothing will happen. If I don't come and talk to you guys today, nothing in my life is going to get threatened. So my need is not now safety, it's contribution. I want to contribute, or I want to connect. So are my needs shifting? That is something that through empathy opened up for me. And in every moment, or every day, I know when I say every moment, it sounds very poetic, like in every moment you're not going on kind of doing that. But every once in a while you're doing it. And so at a framework level, I feel that that's what is something that really shifted for me. But then, again, going back to that pattern of threat and then reacting threat and then this up, down, how can I sustain living like this? How can I sustain living with mental, emotional resilience? So I found that that's where the role of some systems comes in, like I feel through my journey, and I don't know research on it, but that mental wellness is a collective endeavor. It's a community's thing. It's the entire society's thing. It's not like one person needs it. Everybody in society needs it. Some of us reach a maladaptive place and it looks like we need it more. And then it looks like that the tools and traditional therapy is designed for that. And then what happens is it looks down upon you. And it says, hey, you poor thing, you need this. But if it were designed for the entire, all of us, to live with mental resilience, emotional resilience, what would those tools be? And at my workplace, then I came across these tools that all of us use. And Ms. it's too much to go into all of the tools, but I'm happy to talk about it later if any of you want to reach out. We use certain tools, a way of thinking about your life, which is different from the balance. You know, often we are told life is balance, work-life balance. There's a balance. But just imagine the stress of living like that. You have to constantly be on this. And kuch na kuch upar niche hota rehta. You know, so to look at life as a circle instead, as a wheel, with you in the center, and various areas. So a tool in the sense, think of a tool like a calculator. Like a tool, and tools are so amazing because that is what has caused so much of human evolution. I mean, think about the, Neolithic or the Stone Age tools. Think about the wheel. Think about fire. It has to become something that you can use on a daily basis. Not, I'm depressed, now let me go use it. So one of these tools, there are certain other tools like that, which as a system, now these tools again are not designed looking down at somebody who has a mental health disorder and therefore needs to use it, but it's designed for everyone. Because I feel that, this is just my opinion at the moment, but I feel like all of us are somewhere on the border of mental illness. I mean, for me, you know, the hallmark of that illness was I used to look in the mirror and I used to see two me's fighting with each other. One me trying to say, I want to do this, or I think I can do this, I really want to write, and the other me smirking. You, why do you think you can do this? Now, for me, it might have taken a state where it is actually a hallucination, but tell me, how many of you have never experienced conflict between two parts of yourself? You can tell me by show. I'm actually it would be interesting for me to know if anybody has not experienced conflict within yourself. So I feel that these are not tools that a crazy person needs. You know, it's for everyone. So because what happens is then the tool is designed like that. It's designed keeping the humanness, which makes all of us equal. It's designed keeping that in the center, and it doesn't take away your agency. So you can use that tool, like a calculator is not designed for someone with dyscalculia. It's designed for anybody. You know, so the second thing I feel is tools, and I've touched upon, I think the third thing that I wanted to talk about is that it's collective. It's very collective. I mean, I had also read, I studied sociology, and I even read a study by Emil Durkheim, the sociologist, that says that even suicide is a society phenomenon. It's a collective thing. So there are social things that play a role. And all of us impact each other. So for instance, if we were to say empathy, and if I, is it okay if I use you as an example? Let's say that she is not using empathy as a model, and she is using sympathy. And she's looking down on me and saying, oh, bechari, isko kuch chahiye, support chahiye. Can I look at her like this? Then I have to look up only. So it doesn't matter only if I use it. It's very important that she also uses that same framework or that same tool. If few of us think of life as balance and the others do, it won't. It has to be collective so that we are talking. It's like, you know, if I'm talking in Kannada right now, how many of you are going to understand me? There has to be a collective way of understanding it and rising. And I think this is about what I wanted to say about tools, about acceptance, and yeah, and about seeing yourself. And the only thing that I wanted to say about self is that when I finally started to see myself, then there are two things. One is to really see, like using empathy, you see yourself, you acknowledge, no judge. And you have to see your whole self. For example, even if you, it's a very simple example, but for instance, like even with children, my children or even the children we teach, sometimes what happens is the last day, last period before school got over, something would have happened. Friend would have said something. And when you hear something at 8 p.m., it is, my day was really bad. But if you break the day down, that part was really bad. The morning was not so bad actually. That way, if we see our whole self, I have to also see, I can't just see my panic attack. I can't just see moments in which I got anxious. I have to see every part of my life and then see who is this self and connect with that whole self. And similarly, when I look at the past, I see all of it that happened. So I see every part of it. Have you watched that movie Inside Out? Where, the girl there is constantly suppressing sadness. And she thinks that in the previous place where she lived, every memory was happy. Everything was happy. And when she comes back here, she's trying to recreate that happiness. She comes to a new place and she's trying to recreate that happiness constantly. But for her to truly own that place and live there, she has to see that even in those memories, there was some sadness. Doesn't mean there was no happiness. But there was all of it. So we see all of it, that, hey, when I was 18, I had my first breakdown. There was this that happened. And that happened. And that only wasn't the only thing. And then I take all of it and believing that I have agency, I take that and I make sense of it today. What does it mean to me today? And then I'm not a product of that. What are my needs today? And what is the interpretation that serves what I want to do? I think that's me. That's what I wanted to share. I had actually thought I'll be happy to take any reflections or questions, but if we are out of time, that's okay. If anybody wants to share anything that you connected with or any questions, I'm happy to take that. Sorry?
Tools that you
Yeah,
talked
that's
about.
very deep. We can talk after the session, perhaps. Yeah. Okay, then I guess thank you so much for listening. And truly, like it said, no, it is catharsis. Actually, the last thing I want to say, catharsis actually means purgation. You just release. But I felt like you can't just release. Then what's the difference between venting it out? There's processing. You process and you release. And I'm so grateful to the Red Door and to all of you because I got a chance to process and then share my journey. I hope it was of some insight or help.